The camera shutter clicked, sharp and loud in the humid air, and that was when my stomach dropped. The man in the gray hoodie wasn't watching the trees or the fountain at Forsyth Park. He was watching Elena. The knife at his belt caught the light for half a second, and that was enough to tell me this wasn't a coincidence. He was moving toward her with purpose, the kind that ends badly if no one steps in. I lowered the camera and stood up without rushing. Panic gets people hurt. Calm keeps them alive. The heat stuck my shirt to my back as I shifted my weight and placed myself between him and the bench. Elena sat an arm's length away, face tilted toward the sun, dark hair falling over tense shoulders. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but not the strength in her posture. Barnaby, her golden retriever, sat beside her, leash looped in her fingers, steady and unaware. The man saw me. He saw my stance, my size, the way I didn't smile. He hesitated. That pause was everything. I stepped forward, closed his space, and he broke away, melting into a group near the fountain like he had somewhere else to be. The threat passed, but the adrenaline stayed. "You're blocking the sun," Elena said calmly. Her voice was smooth, warm, and sharp at the same time. "And you're breathing like you ran a race, Silas." "Just chased off a stray dog," I said. It was a lie, and she heard it. "A dog with heavy boots?" she asked. I felt the ground change. He was coming for me, wasn't he? I didn't like lying to her. I liked it even less when fear showed in the small ways, like how her fingers tightened on Barnaby's harness. "Yes," I said, "he was." She didn't flinch. That made it worse. "Tell me what you saw." "Not here," I said. "We need to go inside, now." We left without running. I stayed close enough to steady her when a root caught her step, my hand at her back for half a second. I pulled away fast, like the touch meant more than it should. I watched reflections in windows as we walked, checked every pause, every shadow. One man lingered too long, then turned away when I looked straight at him. Her apartment was cool and quiet, everything in its place. I locked the door, checked the windows, and only then let myself really look at her. She removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were hazel, clear, unseeing but still expressive. Tired, strong, too used to carrying things alone. "The letters," I said. "The ones you've been hiding, they're from him." She froze at the sink. "I thought it was just someone angry about an old article. Yesterday he left a message. He knew what I was wearing." "He's watching you," I said. Today confirmed it. "I'm staying, or you're coming with me. You're not sleeping alone tonight." She crossed her arms. "I am not helpless. I don't need a babysitter." "I'm not one," I said, my voice low. "I assess threats, and yours is real." The air between us was tight, charged. Finally, her shoulders dropped. She stepped closer, reaching out until her hand brushed my shirt, then my collarbone. "I don't even know what you look like," she whispered. "I know your voice, your steps, but not you." "I'm nothing special," I said. "Describe yourself," she said softly. Words felt wrong, too thin. "Come closer," I murmured. "I'll tell you." I guided her hand to my face. She traced my jaw, the scar over my eyebrow, the bridge of my nose. Her touch was careful, curious, intimate, in a way that shook me more than any kiss ever had. "You're tense," she said, and worried. "About you," I admitted. She smiled, small and sure. "You're handsome, intense, and your eyes are watching the door." "Always," I said. A sudden thud hit the front door. "Hard," Barnaby barked. I moved fast, pushing Elena behind the kitchen island, drawing my weapon. The hallway was empty, but taped to the door was a photo. Us on the bench. Taken less than an hour ago. "He followed us home," I said. Elena sank onto a stool, steadying herself. "Then he knows you're here." "He knows there's an obstacle," I said. "And obstacles get removed." "I have rules," she said after a moment. "If you stay." I nodded. "I'll follow them." Quote. That night I slept on the sofa, listening to every sound, every breath, and somewhere in the dark I knew this was no longer just about protection. Something else had started, something neither of us could step away from now. The first night passed without sleep. I lay on the sofa staring at the ceiling, every small sound pulling my attention sharp. Pipes knocked. Someone walked in the hallway outside. The building settled the way old buildings do. Each noise ran through my head like a checklist. Elena's bedroom door stayed slightly open, just enough that I could hear her breathing. Slow, controlled. She wasn't asleep either, I could tell. By morning, fear had shifted into something harder to manage. Tension, friction. Two people used to control trying to exist in the same space. I was in the kitchen, tightening a loose hinge on the pantry door, when I heard her come out of her room. She wore a silk robe, moving with confidence, counting her steps without thinking. I forced my eyes back to the screwdriver. "You're making noise," she said, not angry, just direct. "The hinge squeaks," I replied. "Fixed it." Silence stretched. "I used that sound," she said finally. "That squeak told me where I was." I stopped. To me, broken meant unsafe. To her, broken was a map. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'll put it back the way it was." She nodded once. "Ask next time." "I will." She made coffee by memory alone, counting scoops, measuring water by sound. I stood too close. I knew it, hovering without meaning to. "You're pacing," she said. "I'm establishing a patrol pattern." "In a small apartment," she replied dryly. "You're making me anxious." She told me she had a meeting with her editor at noon. I told her I was driving her. "I take the bus," she said. "I know the route." "Not today." Her hand hit the counter. "I will not let fear shrink my life. You can follow, but don't touch me like I'm fragile." We compromised. She walked ahead, cane tapping steady, Barnaby at her side. I stayed a few steps behind, watching everything, every car that slowed, every person who looked too long. At the bus stop, a man in a gray hoodie stepped off a bus and paused. My hand went to my back. He turned. "Wrong man, wrong build." He didn't even look at her. My lungs released, but my body didn't calm. On the bus, I sat behind her. I watched her count stops under her breath. She carried so much just to move through the world, and she did it without complaint. It humbled me. At the cafe, I took a corner seat. I watched her laugh with her editor, head tipped back, joy real and unguarded. For a few minutes, I forgot the danger and just watched her exist. A waiter dropped a napkin near her foot. Before she could reach down, I picked it up. "Got it," I murmured. She stiffened, then relaxed. "Thank you." Her editor looked at me. "New boyfriend?" "Security," I said. "Friend," she said at the same time. She paused, then added, "Both." The next week settled into a strange routine. The messages stopped. I knew better than to relax, but the quiet gave us room to breathe. I learned her space. 3 steps from the fridge to the island. Clothes sorted by texture. I stopped fixing things without asking and started fixing what helped. I added subtle markers she could feel, not see. She never commented, but she stopped bumping into things at night. One evening, after walking to the kitchen without hitting her shin once, she paused. "Thank you," she said quietly. Then came the storm. Rain hammered the windows, trapping us inside. "I'm bored," she announced. "I want to bake." "You want to use a hot oven without sight," I teased. "I want to help her," she corrected. She led. I followed. She handled the dough. I chopped herbs under her supervision. The kitchen smelled warm and alive. She bumped my hip once, then again, like it was an accident she didn't bother correcting. "Your pulse is slower today," she said, fingers briefly at my wrist. "I feel safer," I admitted. "Why are you really here, Silas?" she asked softly. "This isn't just kindness." "I've guarded things that didn't matter," I said. "This does." She didn't push. She just stepped closer, close enough that the air changed. That night, the power went out. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Darkness looks good on her." My blood went cold. "Get down!" I shouted. Glass shattered in her bedroom. I ran. A shadow scrambled at the window. Barnaby lunged, fierce and fearless. I hit the intruder with my light. He slipped, cursed, and vanished into the alley. Elena stood in the corner holding a lamp, ready to fight. "He's gone," I said. "You're safe." She shook when I pulled her into my arms. "He hurt Barnaby." "He's okay," I said, "just scared." We sat on the floor in the dark, rain blowing in, my heart still racing. I can't live like this, she whispered. I'm not leaving, I said. She pulled back, hands finding my face. I don't want this to be just duty. I didn't answer with words. I kissed her. It was desperate and real and full of everything we hadn't said. And in that moment, I knew the line between protecting her and choosing her was already gone. The morning after the break-in felt heavier than the night itself. Fear leaves a smell behind, like smoke after a fire. Detective Miller arrived with tired eyes and a notebook full of half answers. No clear prints, no clean footage, promises of patrols and procedure. None of it sounded like protection. When he left, the apartment stayed cold. Elena sat at the table, fingers moving slowly over a braille letter. The envelope was already opened, she said. It's from my brother. My stomach tightened. He hired a consultant, she continued, to watch me. I didn't answer right away. You knew, she said, not a question. He contacted my firm, I admitted. I declined. But the threats were real. I found you anyway. Silence pressed in. And you stayed, she said. Let me believe it was chance. I stayed because I chose to, I said, not because of him. Her jaw set. The hurt didn't come out as anger, it came out as control. You're not leaving, she said. But you're not in here either. She gestured toward her bedroom. You stand watch outside my door. You don't touch me unless I touch you first. You speak to me like an employee. The word landed hard. Understood, I said. That day I guarded her space without entering it. I listened to her move around me like she'd built walls from air. When she left for work, she reminded me not to move anything. When she returned, her steps were steady, but her breath wasn't. Her phone rang. They caught him, she said after hanging up. Detective Miller wants me downstairs. Did he say the phrase? I asked. She froze. No. Then it's not him, I said. Don't go. She did anyway. I waited 10 seconds. Then I ran. I reached the sidewalk just as a man stepped too close to her, blocking her cane. He moved fast. I moved faster. The knife flashed. Pain burned across my arm as I drove him back. Elena pivoted behind a bench with Barnaby, precise and calm. I took him down. Sirens followed seconds later. At the hospital, the lights were too bright. A nurse stitched my arm. Elena stood close, fingers steady on my hand, grounding me without saying a word. You were early, Miller admitted later. That's the job, I said. Back at the apartment, she stopped at her bedroom door. Thank you, she whispered, then closed it. I loosened the pantry hinge just enough to bring the squeak back. Her landmark, her map. Weeks passed. The danger faded. The distance didn't. At a gala weeks later, she wore red and stood taller than the room. When someone leaned too close, she placed her hand on my chest. This is Silas, she said. He's with me. Not security, not employee, just with me. She pulled me into a slow kiss, deliberate and sure. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't watching from the edges. I was home. After the gala, the world didn't magically calm down, but something inside us did. The threat was contained. The man was in custody. Patrol cars still passed our building, but fear was no longer the loudest thing in the room. What replaced it was quieter and deeper. Trust. That night, back at the apartment, Elena took off her heels near the door and rested her hand on the wall, breathing out slowly. You can stop standing guard now, she said. I stayed where I was. Old habits don't disappear overnight. I'm fine right here. Quote. She turned her face toward me, serious. Silas, come here. I walked to her, slow, giving her space to pull back if she wanted. She didn't. Her hand found my wrist and held it there, steady and warm. I don't want rules anymore, she said. Not the kind that keep us apart. My chest tightened. Are you sure? Quote. She nodded. I've lived in darkness long enough to know when something feels real. She leaned in first. The kiss wasn't desperate like before. It was calm, certain, a decision. When we pulled back, she rested her forehead against my chest like she belonged there. You still watching the door? She asked softly. Always, I said. Good, she replied. Then you'll notice when I open mine. She took my hand and led me down the hallway. No hesitation, no armor, just trust. Life after that didn't become perfect. It became shared. Mornings with coffee, and quiet arguments about noise and landmarks. Afternoons where I went back to work but closer to home. Evenings where she asked me to describe the world she couldn't see, and nights where she taught me how to slow down. One afternoon she asked me again, smiling this time, "Describe yourself." I thought for a moment. Then I said, "I'm the man who stands between you and the dark, and the one who walks beside you when you don't need protection." She reached for my face, confident now, familiar. That's the best description yet. I still carry my instincts, I still watch shadows, but I don't feel alone anymore, neither does she. And every night, when she calls my name from the bedroom, I answer. Not as security, not as an employee, just as the man she chose.